Hello, everybody. This is the Laws That Lie podcast. Today, we're going to talk to you a little bit about the First Amendment of the Constitution. And if we have enough time, we're going to go into the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. First Amendment of the Constitution being freedom of speech, uh, freedom of religion, right? And freedom to assemble peacefully, right? Just mind you, right? The Bill of Rights, the Bill of Wrongs is the subtitle of the Laws That Lie. The father of the Bill of Rights was the fourth president, James Madison. All right. Actually, he's the father of the Constitution, which actually adopted the Bill of Rights from a man named George Mason. And George Mason was actually, he adopted that from the Declaration, Virginia Declaration. But at that time, the United States, a lot of people were actually fighting with them with the Bill of Rights, just to let you know that the Constitution was already established, but the Bill of Rights wasn't. And they brought the Bill of Rights in because they really didn't trust the federal government. So without further ado, we're going to have two gentlemen here, and they're going to be dialoguing about this insightfully. And I just want to introduce our first speaker, Brother Sahji Dean. Sahji Dean is a musician. He's a horn player, played few horns. One of them is the sax. I think he plays the flute and maybe some other horns. I'll let him explain that to you. I call him the griot. Without further ado, Sahji Dean. Sahji Dean, are you there?
Hey, peace. Salam alaikum. How you, brother?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Kareem. This First Amendment,
Can you speak up a little bit?
Can't hear me?
I can hear you, but if you could speak a little louder, keep your face in the screen, though. Come back. But just speak up a little louder. That's all. Yes, sir. There you go.
Yeah.
Keep your face right there.
Well, the First Amendment, not only the First Amendment, the first 10 amendments were written into the Bill of Rights, are covered by the Bill of Rights, or written into the Bill of Rights. One of the theory behind it was that, was the anti-federalist rhetoric. Okay, I lost you. I don't know where you went, Hans.
I'm still here. Go ahead, brother. Keep going.
Yeah, was the anti-federalist rhetoric. And that rhetoric at the time was a caveat for the early colonists, because these are people who just came out of a system, man, called feudalism, dominated by the monarchy and the church, and they didn't want a government. They didn't want to foster a government that would have the same effect on them. So what they tried to do, because they were a fledgling nation, was write in some things that would keep that from happening. So the Bill of Rights, is basically its composition, as far as I'm concerned, is based on the Trinity, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But also written into that, in the details of it, is the idea of keeping them out of the grips of slavery or indentured servitude, which was actually happening at the time when this document was being written. So, I think it, from my perspective, the document was about 13, what would eventually be 13 colonies, and the idea of a nation trying to, fledgling nation trying to give birth to itself and have some checks and balances that would keep a scenario from happening that they just came out of. So this was basically the Bill of Rights was a deterrent, about the reach of government and the reach of the federalist idea, or the constructs of federalism. So, which sounds really close to the word feudalism when you think about it. So I guess, in the mindset of those at that particular time, the idea of not having a government take their sovereignty from them, again, was paramount. So the construction of those two things, uh, the idea of that trinity, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but also that First Amendment. And one of the things when I went through uh, the Constitution and the early becomings of America, uh, one thing I was always careful of doing was not uh, was reading in between the lines, because uh, obviously the documents weren't written at the time for us. 1619. If you look back, chattel slavery existed. Was already full fledged, and so was the genocide. So,
So, Sahji, we want to talk a little bit more about the First Amendment of the Constitution
well,
and
that's what
how
I'm
that
talking.
applies to the people in general, but African American in specific.
Well, at the time, it didn't apply at all. So I'm talking about its beginning. See, that's where I start at in the
Yeah, you're talking about the
beginning.
Bill of Rights. Let's talk about the First Amendment.
First Amendment. I'm talking about the First Amendment. It didn't apply to black folks. We were slaves, in its conception. I'm talking about the beginning. Now, if we're talking about now, that's a different topic of discussion. But if we're talking about the origins of the First Amendment, at the time it was written, it had nothing to do with us. You know what I'm saying? We were not part of that construct. We were considered property.
So
So
when you say we weren't a part of the construct, what do you mean by that? Where were we?
we were chattel. And if you want to know what chattel means that you're property of someone else. So uh, the, the constructs of law, the laws that were being formulated at that time. I mean, did a horse have a right to the First Amendment? Did a cow or a pig have a right to the First Amendment? No. We're talking about it in its infancy. We're not talking about it as it stands today and what came after as a result of a civil war and a few other things, But the reality is, if we're talking about that First Amendment in its conception, it had nothing to do with us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It had
when
every,
you talk about the freedom to assemble or gather peacefully,
well,
it makes
that
me
had,
think about George Floyd. It makes me think about people gathering right now for ICE, getting sprayed and shot. Um,
well, that part
so
of the first,
I really want to kind of talk about, you know, how even though back then it wasn't for us, right now you're saying it's something different. I don't really see the difference. I just think it's
well,
all the same. Yeah.
what I'm saying to you is that now that you got to remember that First Amendment is broken up into three parts, right? That part, the right to assemble, had an effect on us. How many slaves could stand together on a plantation before they got whipped? No more than two.
Right, and the same thing applies now. If we gather together and we try to stand up against whatever, ICE, like the big thing right now is ICE. So
Mhm.
you know, yeah. So I mean, I just wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit
Well, the
in the
right to
content
assembly,
comparison, right?
well, the right to assembly falls right in line with the first part of that amendment, right? Freedom of speech, right? Ain't nothing free in America.
Right.
Everything comes with a consequence or a due date. You can say what you want, but you can be held for what you say. And what I mean by that, if sedition, if saying what you want means like, listen, man, we're gonna storm the Capitol, right? You're gonna be held in check for that. So saying what you want comes with collateral damage. It comes with a caveat. So the reality is freedom of speech, to what degree, right? Right to assemble, to what degree, right? Religious tolerance, even involves some pushback in terms of cultism and some few other things. Uh, uh, you have to you can't look at those words and just take them for granted, being that they apply the way they speak, right? You have you have the freedom of speech. Yes, you do, to a degree, right? You have the right to assemble. Yes, you do, to a degree, right? You have a right to religious tolerance. Yes, you do, to a degree, and all these things come with degrees. And that's the part of it that, again, provides the hypocrisy of it, even in these times today, as we speak, as obvious as it was when it was created. When you look at the landscape of what was actually happening in America at the time that they wrote these words, which is the reason why I say we weren't included uh, in we didn't have the luxury of benefiting from those things at the time that they were written. And today we have to be careful how we interpret those things in 2026, because again, there's degrees to it. So the right
Yeah,
to
there's definitely
assemble.
degrees to it. And case in point, we was having a conversation and we were talking some political stuff, some racial stuff. And one of the gentlemen yelled out while I was in the front giving my speech that if in fact we didn't have freedom of speech, because he was saying that, yeah, we do have freedom of speech just like everybody else. If in fact we didn't, we wouldn't be able to be here right now speaking. They'll come in and just come get us. But we're here, we're speaking now because the First Amendment of the Constitution does apply to us as African American and Black people. What do you guys say about that?
Well, what I have to say today, they just convened a hearing in Congress today with Pam. I believe it was Pam Bondi, right? And the gentleman came in and he started speaking. They forcibly removed him.
Where was this at?
It's in Capitol Hill.
Wow. Okay. So without
DC.
further ado, we're going to bring in our next speaker, Brother Magnetic, who's a teacher, a father, an artist, and writer. He out of New Jersey. He's out of New Jersey. Magnetic was half of hip hop's duo True and Living. Recorded with various artists such as Wu-Tang Clan, Jewel Ortiz, Tragedy, Gaddafi. Received major radio play for Power 105. Actually, his mother also the great grandson of Anne, the great grandson of Anne Lowe, iconic fashion designer and clothier, who made Jackie Kennedy's wedding gown, among other dresses, with a background in sales and marketing. He has 30 years experience. Ladies and gentlemen, Magnetic. Magnetic,
Yeah, how
are
you
you
doing?
there?
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you very well, brother. Man, welcome, man. The laws that lie. So we're talking about the First Amendment of the Constitution and how it applies to people in general, and specifically Black people. What's your perspective on that?
Um, Putting it into context and its origin, the First Amendment as well as the other amendments come from intelligent men who fought for their freedom and fought against the monarchy. And really that was the sole purpose in their minds. They were like, we got to make sure that we're not creating what we just ran away from. We got to make sure that we are not setting ourselves up for failure. And ultimately, these men sat down and really thought out, how are we going to make this nation run in a way that benefits us as the guys who just won this Revolutionary War, the guys who, fought for this country to make sure that it belongs to us. And when I say us, I mean those land owning, educated white men at that time. And over time, obviously, people were added to that, women, uh, Black people, immigrants, etc. So America basically became a beacon of light to the world, that everybody wanted to come here so that they would have these freedoms from, tyranny, from a monarchy or what have you. Many times they got here, and depending on when they got here, they said, "Oh, this ain't like the brochure," but uh, ultimately we all made do. My people have been in this country for hundreds of years. according to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad since 1555, you know, uh, Jamestown, Virginia, right? So in the beginning, we have to be mindful that they also started out this country. It's not as a country, but as a corporation called
Exactly.
That's right.
The Virginia Company. Um,
Mm.
so these are guys
Expound
who,
on that a little bit, man.
well, basically, the Virginia Company was sort of a copy of the East India Trading Company, but without the export import aspect of it. So they wanted to make this a hub. America is essentially a trading post that got turned into a corporation that got turned into a nation, right? So we got to also keep in mind that we didn't have the entire country as we have it now. There was no, Miami and L.A. and Texas and Hawaii. All of that stuff came later. You were dealing with the original 13 colonies. Um, I think it's also important to note that these guys, or to stress that these guys were young and pretty damn smart. Most of them were Freemasons. A lot of people think that this country was founded as a Christian nation, but it actually was not. Even I believe it was Thomas Jefferson was actually an atheist and wrote an entire or translated the Bible without it may have just been the New Testament, but without the religious context. So he basically made a Bible that was about government and about law and about moral uh, moral ideology as opposed to spiritual and theological notions. So, you know, I don't subscribe to the fact that, or to the idea or the notion that, this is a Christian nation, because a lot of the founding fathers didn't subscribe to that. They were all, it's a free Masonic nation before it's a Christian nation, I would say.
Well, some people
Uh,
may just differ with you on that because they say we came over here on the boat to Jesus.
mhm.
Some people say we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us, and
Oh, I wouldn't
the
deny
first
that.
thing they gave us was the Bible.
Yeah, I'm not saying that a lot of them weren't Christians. They were, if you were religious, you were a Christian,
The Ku
They,
Klux Klan, from what I understand, they claim to be Christian. The Knights,
right.
what they call themselves,
Um,
the Christian Knights.
yeah, something like that. But that's another what's the word? That's a secret society, basically. That comes out of their other fraternal orders. That's how we could word that. That's a fraternal order, the
So are you saying
KKK.
that the Christian Knights, the Ku Klux Klan, are Mason?
Many of them, they're
Wow.
not the founding fathers, though. When we're talking about the KKK came later, founded by Democrats. Um, and yeah, it was a terrible thing what the KKK did. But I also wanted to make another point that a lot of people don't know that this country really had to seek the ability or seek the permission. That's the word I'm looking for to do business as a corporation and as a nation. They had to get permission to do so. So they had a treaty with Morocco. Morocco and the Islamic world really was the first nation to recognize this nation. So a lot of people don't know that Morocco was the first nation to recognize America as a nation at all in the beginning.
Wow.
So if it wasn't for the Islamic world and Islam, America wouldn't even be given permission to operate, which is kind of another conversation. But I think that's important to note. If you look that up, you'll find that Morocco was the first, uh, you know, world power to recognize America. Now, moving into what it became in modern times, once we had the Emancipation Proclamation, slavery is over, 1863. Then we move another 100 years later. We have the civil rights movement, and we have other things that allowed us to take advantage of what those guys put into place. You know, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, George Washington, Ben Franklin, those guys, John Locke, etc. Right. So it behooved us to do so, and I think that we've made great strides, and great sacrifices were made so that we could have certain abilities. Black people in this country, if we were a nation, we would be the wealthiest black nation on earth right now. You know, our spending power is over $1 trillion annually.
See, but you said it right. You said spending power.
Mm-hmm.
Our investment power. See, what happens is we spend on Nike while other people are investing in Nike, and they teach their kids to invest in Nike instead of wearing Nike. But go ahead,
But
bro.
so then the question becomes, whose fault is that? You know,
right.
And that goes back to a conversation about accountability. We now are in the position, and we really owe it to our ancestors to take that spending power and turn it into investments, turn it into ownership. And that's really all we should be focused on as a people right now, is owning a piece of this country, which is something that we've been coerced and programmed and tricked and, you know, as Malcolm would say, bamboozled, hoodwinked, and all of that into shifting our priorities away from, through various distractions, away from ownership, away from sovereignty, away from autonomy. And that's what we really need. We need autonomy.
When you talk about autonomy in this country, there is a process. How do you believe that can happen for African American and Black people?
Well, it starts with a shift in priorities. It starts with family, because in the beginning, or if you look at it as a microcosm, all a nation is an extended community. All a community is an extended family, right? So it really stems with the nuclear family. It stems from the nuclear family. If you have an intact nuclear family and you have men who have intact nuclear families working together to pool their resources, to protect their women and children, to buy land, to buy property, to incorporate, to invest, and all of that.
But do you know that we've done that before? I mean, you're talking about Black Wall Street, man.
Of course, yeah, we have
Oklahoma.
done that before.
Yeah, we've done it before, and they burnt the cities down, man. And I know you're the one to say that we do have opportunity and a chance here as African American and Black people, but these other folks make it very, very difficult. Not just.
Are you aware that we built Rosewood back up after it was burned down?
Yeah, but it was
people
never
don't
the
talk
same.
about that.
It was never the same, and a lot of people died. A lot of instrumental people died. The people who.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Huh?
I said that was terrible.
Right. I mean, it didn't just happen there, right here in Atlanta. This was ground zero.
So
Central Park was ground zero.
If we have, much like we need to take a page out of the book of the individuals that we started this conversation talking about that wrote these amendments. We need to take a page out of their book, because they fought for their independence, and then they said, okay, now we need to structure what we want to do for our own destiny. So in doing that for ourselves, if we come together, we pool our resources, we invest. I mean, Jews do this all the time, right? We invest, and we need to become producers as well. That's another, part of the conversation. We don't produce, we're consumers, right? So we don't own and we don't produce. And we've been kind of relegated to being consumers, and we've basically adopted that mindset, the consumer mindset. So everybody comes here to sell us stuff, right? So the immigrants wouldn't even want to come here. We talk about from South America, from the Middle East, from Africa, even from all over the world. They come here so that they can find the American dream on the backs of Black people. What's the first thing that they do? They come here, they open up a Chinese food restaurant, they open up a cleaners, they open up some sort of a nail salon, a hair salon, they open up a business in our neighborhood. Why? Because everybody else has their shit together. I don't know if I can curse, pardon me, but everybody else, has their thing together where they can't go into the Jewish neighborhood and open up their cleaners or open up their businesses or open up or put a liquor store in there or something like that or their bodegas. They can come to our communities and do that. And that's sort of the model. That's really been the model. The first step on the rung of advancement in America for the immigrant is the back of Black America, and we've
So how
allowed
does that make
ourselves.
you feel?
Well, I try to not operate out of how I feel about things. I focus on how I think about them because being emotional about it or having a knee-jerk reaction of, oh, that's not right, or that's not fair, or I feel inadequate, or I feel, none of that matters. The question is, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to respond intelligently to that? And that's what I'm speaking to, responding in a way that we then say, you know what, you guys can't come here and open up these businesses because you know what, open them up and we won't even patronize them. But the first thing that we do is we want to go buy Jordans. We want to go buy jewelry from the Jews. We want to go buy 4 chicken wings and fried rice from the Chinese food restaurant. Our women who refuse to wear their own hair want to wear Indian hair and Brazilian hair. They know that, so they come here and they sell us all of these products, right? That really don't help us, and 99% of the time are a disservice to us, right? The liquor store, the hair salons, all these things are really distractions, superficial, materialistic nonsense that keep us in the state of somebody who is a slave, essentially, right? So a man can be free, but if he's not thinking like a free man, he's wasting his freedom. I don't know if you guys ever seen this. I don't know how to word it. Like it's not an experiment, but if you tie a horse to, how you ride a horse, you tie it to a post, and you go in the building or the saloon or wherever you're going, the horse doesn't move. But you can take that same horse and tie it to a plastic chair that weighs, that you could pick up with your pinky, right? You could tie that, how heavy a horse is, 500, 600 pounds, 800-pound horse to that little plastic chair, and the horse won't move.
It's
It
called the
will stay there.
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah,
It's
it will
called
stay there.
Yeah, it's called the Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah. So we are like that horse that are now tied to that plastic chair. And that plastic chair used to be a strong iron post, right? So 200 years ago, that plastic chair was an iron post, and we knew not to move. Oh, we try to move, it's impossible. We can't break away from this, or we might get beat or whatever it is. But because we've been so conditioned with that mindset for so long, they said, oh, we don't even need the iron post no more. We could just tie them to this little plastic chair. And the mindset of that horse or these people in this analogy say, oh man, the white man got us down. We can't do nothing. We can't, oh, we're oppressed. We can't get free. And somebody comes along and goes, yeah, that little chair only weighs like 10 ounces, right? You can move. You're strong enough to just walk away. You're strong enough to just do what you want to do. No, man, I've been tied up to this thing, and I can't. So that's my thoughts about how we respond to a lot of the perceived um, oppression or modern day racism and things of that nature. Most of it is things that wouldn't even be able to affect us if we had the right mindset and if we acted on that right mindset of pooling resources, focusing on ownership, disregarding all of the things that are detrimental to us, the gang banging, the drugs, the alcohol, the materialism, you know, poor parenting, single parent households, all of these things that, yeah, they don't happen in a vacuum. And yes, we can say, well, the white man did this and You know, he incentivized our women with the welfare system and this and that. But when you're dealing with the devil is going to give you, he can't operate without your consent. It's just like, you know, they exposed that a little bit in the movie Sinners, which was an old thing about vampires. A vampire will come to your door, he will knock on the door. He ain't busting in through the window. He can't do that. He's knocking on the door. And you come to the door, and if you're foolish enough to let that vampire in because you don't know any better, because he's presenting himself with a nice disguise and you're beguiled, and you say, okay, well, yeah, come on in. Now you're food. So
But what
that's
if
what
he's knocking on? What if he's knocking on the door that where you live, and that he actually owns the house?
he's still knocking on the door, you
Okay.
know?
So with
So
that being said, Brother Sahji, I want you to segue in, give your opinions on what you think about what the brother Magnetic just said, brother. What you think about that?
I think he had a lot of great points, man. And I think, one of the things about dialogue, one of the things about conversation, one of the beautiful things about creating a platform for conversation is that we get an opportunity, man, to understand how someone else thinks and feels. And I think that's really important. See, one of the things that really interests me is uh, how do we overcome the dilemma, right? Not what the dilemma is. I mean, not what the dilemma is. I mean, certainly we know what it is, right? But how do we overcome it? And one of the things I think, after listening to all this, is that like if you if you really pay close attention, if you watch, if you learn, if you go back and you really see what happened in the beginning, all our answers and to the questions that we have right are right there. It's in the history. And see, one of the important things about the history, right? It only bears fruit to those who do the work, right? And this is one of the big problems we have facing us in this country. See, and I'm going to take it away from the idea of even race at this particular point. Because to me, really, the paramount thing is it's a human thing. It's a species thing. This is not just a fight for your race, man. This is a fight. This is a fight for humanity. You understand? If that's what's at stake right now. We have individuals, man, who basically believe that the whole planet should be subjective to their discretion. That's where we at. We're looking at it take place right now, in different parts of the world. So for me, one of the most glaring problems about the experiment called America, right, is that it was spiritually bankrupt from the very beginning. It's the only way that it could function or even crack the egg to begin to even become what it is now. And when I say spiritually bankrupt, I'm talking about when you take another human being and you remove them from the land by force and you systematically exterminate them. We have a term for that. We call it genocide. When you take another group of people and you bring them in and you work them, okay, fine, chattel, you create the so-called nigger, you know, uh, you know, one of the Supreme Court justices wrote a glaring uh, pronouncement in his name is Brandeis. Really, really great argument. It's called Fruits of the Poisonous Tree. If any part of an investigation is tainted, right, then the entire investigation is tainted. And he also went on to say in that document, right, if the government sows seeds of sedition against the people have the right to raise up against the government. You dig what I'm saying? The
And
reality
that's the
is this.
Second Amendment of the Constitution, actually,
Well, this is
right
a
to bear
Brandeis.
arms.
This is a brand, but this Brandeis was much after the writing of the Constitution. This is fairly modern, In fact, Timothy McVeigh used it in his discourse before he was executed, after he did what he did in Oklahoma as a result of what happened in down in Waco,
So
Texas.
let's kind of get back
But
to
but but
what Magnetic was talking about. He was saying that as African people, though we have these freedoms, right? Freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, right? He's saying that it's our fault that we're not really assembling the way we should. That these other immigrants are coming over here, and they are they're actually coming over here to target us. We're their targeted market. We're actually, without us, they can't really make money. We're the top consumers, but we don't really invest. And if we would follow some of the founding fathers, that we can do better as African Americans. What do you got to say about that, as Black people?
a lot of it, well, basically, man, like
He's tired of hearing us crying, talking about the white man is holding us back.
well, I'm not, this has nothing to do with them. I'm talking about the spirit of an individual. You understand what I'm saying? If you're hollow, man, everything that will come from you will be hollow. If you're toxic, if you're a contagion, right? You will always be a contagion. You will infect, not affect. You will infect. And that's the problem. If you want to follow the model of those individuals, then you're 249 years into a nation that's in decline, you know. And now, in order to right that ship, you have to go out and basically, you know, you have to take things from people. If you want to
Robert.
follow that model, then I get it. I understand. And I don't think that's what Magnetic is saying. But
No, I
Well,
wasn't. Thank
Magnetic,
you.
is that
yeah,
what you're saying?
No,
no,
I
it's
wasn't
not what
saying
he's
that.
saying.
I was saying that
No.
there are examples that we can take. There are,
Mhm.
anecdotal things that we can copy and that we can learn from. In other words, we don't need to have the mindset of these are just some racist crackers and they're just some evil people and these were smart guys. These guys were not fools by any means. If you look at the time period, if you look at the technology and the mindset that they had and the ages that they were and the things that they did, there's a certain degree of respect that should be shown for them because they weren't no slouches. They earned what they got, whether you
Yeah,
want to call it by theft or robbery or
Hook or
whatever.
crook.
They were willing to die to get what
Yeah.
they got.
well,
And
that's good.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Saji.
No,
Interject.
no, that's the point that I'm trying to get to, is that you know what they what we say they possess, we possess far greater, because our spiritual continuity is much greater. And I'm not saying that in a spooky kind of crazy kind of way. What I'm saying, that we are people, man, from the dirt, from the mud. We respect the planet. We don't take and don't put back. You dig what I'm saying? We believe in this cosmic reciprocity. We come from a people of the land. We understand what Khalifa means, the guardian, the protector. You see what I'm saying? When we take on the dynamics of a snake, right? We act like a reptile, and what I'm saying is that they may be bright, they may be intelligent, they may actually be uh, 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 the individuals who were brave enough to dare to do what they are actually doing now. But the reality is, when I look back,
I'm glad you said that. What they're doing now, what they did then, they're still doing now. Is that
yeah,
what you're
yeah,
saying?
exactly. But the reality is, there are models before then. There's people like Mansa Musa. There's there's
Of
there's a,
course,
there's
yeah.
a yeah, there's a whole lot of different models. And
Askia
what I'm
Muhammad.
yeah, and what I'm saying is that we have to be careful not not to dismiss our spiritual continuity. The reason why we're out of sync, the reason why we're ass backwards when it comes to commerce, when it comes to dealing with one another, is because our spiritual leverage is out of whack. We don't have that equilibrium. See, we're looking for things outside ourselves to fulfill ourselves, but we're not looking inside. The hit is in here. See, for me, you know, being a man doesn't come from what I see in the streets. It doesn't come from what I see necessarily, not necessarily other people doing. Man means mind, right? And at some point, there's a there's a there's a job you have to do to earn that. You don't get that because you become 60. You know what I'm saying? Men, as far as I'm concerned, men represent their behavior, right? How they act, how they carry themselves, how they speak, how they interact, how they gauge their responsibilities. And I think, what we have to do is get back to looking into ourselves instead of outside of us. Commerce is fine, I get that, but it's a distraction
Right.
for people
Yeah, yeah. So
coming
so
out of the
so so I
mud.
wanna I wanna I wanna talk to Magnetic for a second. Magnetic, how do you feel about ICE? How do you feel about what's happening with Trump right now? Let's talk about that, man. The First Amendment of the Constitution says that we can gather peacefully in crowds. How do you feel about ICE and these crowds and what's going on right now, brother Magnetic?
Okay. As far as the outrage behind what's going on with ICE, that's manufactured outrage. It's not real,
What
and
do you mean by
people.
that? Elaborate on it. What do you
I'm
mean it's
gonna
not real? It's manufactured. What do you mean by that?
I'm gonna explain everything I'm saying. Social engineering is a real thing. Propaganda is a real thing. Uh, Trump has deported way less people than Obama. When Obama was in office, he was known as the deporter in chief. He deported more people in his presidency than any other president in the history of this country. Okay. But not a peep out of anyone. 47 deaths at the hands of ICE under Obama, not a peep. So, why is it such a big deal now? Because the people who run the media decided that they weren't going to handle the situation the way they did with Obama, who was a media darling. They deliberately made him like he was like Billy D. Williams. Nobody was going to say nothing about him. He was smooth. He got to do whatever he wanted. So they used him to run a lot of nonsense, right? Did more drone strikes. Not to go too far off on a tangent, but just to kind
No,
of
that's all
make
right.
my
Go ahead,
point.
man. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
he did more drone strikes than any other president also in history, but not a peep. The news. If Trump was doing the things that Obama did, there would be complete outrage. So I said, well, wait a minute. You look at the statistics and you look at the numbers and you look at who was deported. You'll say, well, damn, how come? Why wasn't ICE a problem then? Tom Homan was getting awards and everybody was clapping, literally, when he was doing the very same thing that he's doing now, right? And it all starts with the facts that we do and have had an illegal immigration problem. 10 million plus, meaning more than 10 million people came into this country over a 4 year time span, which is enough to cause serious problems and destabilizations in certain aspects of society. You had communities that were taken over. You had people who were raped and killed. Women who were badly raped and stabbed and thrown in rivers and off of bridges. No mention, well, very little mention of that, and very little focus of that in the media, because they know that if they were focusing on a lot of the criminality that the illegal immigrants were perpetrating, that people would be like, yeah, okay, it's time for those, go get them, let them go. If you knew the stats of the fact that 70% of the people who came, that 10 million number that I was just talking about, 70% of those individuals come from a criminal background, violent criminal background. So most of the people that ICE was going after, especially in the beginning, They were focusing on mainly violent criminals, people with criminal histories and things of that nature.
You believe
Um,
that?
I know that. I looked at the stats. I looked at the studies. I contrasted it with what happened in previous administrations, right? So when you look at what's going on in Minnesota, you would think that Minnesota was the capital of immigration issues, but Texas actually had the largest immigration population that needed to be removed. Meaning, ICE came into Texas and did far more work and did far more deportations in Texas than they did in Minneapolis
Well,
or
you mentioned
Minnesota. Let
Obama
me let
and
me let
ICE
me
during
finish
the
this
time
point.
of
Let me finish this
Obama,
point. Let me finish
right?
this point real quick.
Go ahead. Go
Two
ahead.
sentences. Two sentences, and you got it. Um, Minnesota freaked out, but Texas did not because Texas is a red state. So these Minnesota individuals are what you call a sanctuary city. So you got a lot of hotbed activity of people who are radical liberals, radical leftists
Elaborate on
who,
that. What do you mean by that? Hotbed and radical. What do you mean?
well, what I mean is when we look at places like Seattle, Portland, um, Minneapolis, these are cities that were infiltrated by Marxists, were infiltrated by different radical ideologies that ultimately said, okay, we are going to make a hub. We're going to make this city a hub, and we're going to implement a lot of policies. So they get a mayor elected, they get certain people in offices and congressmen and all that, and they set it up politically on one aspect, and on the other aspect, they set it up socially with boots on the ground through guys like George Soros. George Soros, if you're not familiar with him, he's a billionaire who has been destabilizing nations for decades. Um, he is a socialist, Marxist Jew who turned his own Jewish people in during the Holocaust to save his own skin and to benefit himself. He's a supporter of NAMBLA. I don't know if you guys are familiar with NAMBLA is. That's the National Association of Man Boy Love. Okay, I'm just giving you a little bit of background on this guy if you're not familiar with him. But he goes into nations and funds destabilizations through disruptions, through protests, through riots, which is what we've been seeing, which is part of what Black Lives Matter was, which is why he was a lot of what the money behind Black Lives Matter and other organizations that really aren't here for the benefit of Black people, benefit of immigrants, the benefit of gays, all of the things that he's putting money behind. When we look on TV and we see these uh, protests and these marches, no kings and all this stuff. Most of these people are literally paid protesters. They're being paid. They're getting a check. You say, well, how can you turn on TV in the middle of the day and go, how can all of these guys, you know, take day after day and they're not at work? How are they supporting their families? How are they living? Is because they're literally being paid by a billionaire or several billionaires to do that. So you would look into something like Open Society, which is the NGO, which is the non-government organization that he channels and funnels this money through so that he can pay protesters. They even put piles of bricks. They'll bring a tractor in and put piles of bricks. They'll give these guys signs. How you got immigrants, they don't even speak or write English in many cases, but they holding signs with perfect English, all in unison. They got the same signs. Where'd they get these signs from? These guys, a lot of this stuff is being orchestrated, and then the layperson who's really not in the know looks at that and goes, "Oh man, look what Trump is doing. He's so bad. Oh man, look what's going on over here. They shot that lady. Look what they did." Most of that it's a psyop, and too many of our people fall for that stuff. So it's a distraction for us.
Can I get
I was gonna, yeah, I was gonna give it to you. That's why I was stopping. I
go ahead,
forgot
go
I
ahead,
was
finish
supposed
your
to
sentence.
stop. Five
Go ahead,
sentences ago, I was supposed to stop. Huh?
No, that's all right. That's fine. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. One of the things I want to say about propaganda, man, propaganda, the oldest, propaganda machine that America has that was adopted actually came, was had a lot to do with Nazi Germany. They're
Joseph
masters of
Goebbels.
yeah, they're masters of propaganda, and it's twofold. The reality is destabilization is part of how America works. They've done that in the very beginning. You just look at places. It started with Mexico, went to Spain. Once the War of 1898 with the Spanish-American War, which lasted probably about all of 2 months before they took over the oceans, and really rendered Spain mute. After they ran around the world doing their barbaric uh, escapades with the Incas, the Mayas, the Cholulus, and so forth and so on. So America has a history of destabilization. It starts with the Native American folk here. So destabilization, is not something that's, some billionaire got to come along and do for these people here. It's part of the fabric of this country. The displaced people who come here. What person would walk three? I've been to Venezuela. I've been down to Brazil, Chile, Peru. The reality is, what person in their right mind would walk 3,000 miles, right, to come to a country that they have no clue about if their country wasn't destabilized? The reason why people were leaving Venezuela was not because somebody went down there and told them, yo, there's some really good stuff going on in America. When Chavez died, it was over. Now they had been trying to get into Venezuela since the 70s, and they were pushed out. Once Chavez got in, he was a deterrent for these oil companies. Everything that you see taking place right now is about oil and software. Even in Iran, that has nothing to do with the salvation of Iranians. This is about that strip over there where all the oil of the world runs through. They don't even want the oil. They just want the proceeds from it. You see, you're dealing with a spiritless people, man. And they'll take truths, even the Satan will tell you the truth. Twice in a sentence, right? But the third time is usually a lie. And the reality is, like, deportation start. Bill Clinton, 92, man. Bill Clinton started the Deportation Act. He also started NAFTA and GATT. The Deportation Act. This is what I mean by destabilization. The Deportation Act said, listen, if you're doing time over here in this country, when you come out of prison, right, you're going back wherever you came from, whether you grew up there or not, you're getting out of here. So what happens to these little nations when you take a criminal element from America, send it back to them, right? And they got like 30 cops, or they got a police force of 1,500, and you got tens of thousands of people getting released from prison here every day. Second thought about this, right? The prison element, after Nixon left office, him and his buddy Spiro Agnew and, this Dean
Vicky
and
Dick.
Mitchell and all. Yeah, Dean and Mitchell and these cats who ran their whole program on the idea, the war on crime, right? Which turned into this fixation about locking up poor folks. And I'm not even going to put a color line on it. You can do the work yourself about that. But the reality is America represents a fifth of the world's population. By 1985, they had between 45 and 47% of the world's population. They had more people in prison in California than they did in Russia. And Russia's 3 times the size of America. The reality is deportation, destabilization, man, is how tyrants work. And they make you believe that it's a manifestation, right, that somebody else is doing. Like the dude was fighting back, man. He had a gun. That's why I shot her. Or she was gonna run me over with the car. You know how many times I've seen that? Did you ever hear the explanation they had when they killed Eleanor Bumpus, who was a 69-year-old retarded grandmother who was afraid of being evicted from her apartment? And a dude shotgunned her, blew her hand off first. Or little Jay Parker, who had a water gun in the hallway of a project building in Harlem, where they had to literally change the laws about water guns because a cat took his life. You dig what I'm saying? The reality, my man's son Shoaib over there in Brooklyn, man, killed his son down there in the basement with his hand. I mean, it's just too many different episodes, and I'm not trying to take this out of context. What I'm saying is that a country that is absent a spiritual barometer, like you said, they didn't come here as Christians. They didn't come here, they secret orders. You know, a, a spiritless nation usually says I instead of we. And when a nation says I instead of we, it's usually quickly dispersed. You got 249 years on the books from 1776 to 2026, turned 250 this year. Rome lasted 2,000 years. What happened to Rome when it fell? Spreaded its borders too wide, right? Ended up there messing around with a cat named Vladimir Dracula, you know? And, you know, that was the fall of Rome. Never destroyed, just dispersed. Spain, you know what I'm saying? With its uh, barbaric ass. You know, King Tariq went and sat on them for 850 years, cultured them, built Madrid, built Grenoble, Seville. As soon as he left in 62, they went right back to it, became marauders. You know what I'm saying? The reality is, man, you know, America, if you want it to be this utopic idea that people genuinely ascribe that it is, because it's built on, it was supposed to be built on the notion of diversity. Now we're having a problem with what an immigrant is, you know? So the idea of diversity has become almost a curse, you know? We're talking about immigrants, man. We're talking about people uh, fleeing their homeland because it is literally being destroyed in their faces.
Yeah, so what do you think about Trump changing the laws and he's saying the DEI, you know, so many
Well, I mean,
jobs and, you know, what do
think
you think
about,
about that?
well, but think about, you know, listen, man, if you was coming into a spot, man, and you wanted to make sure that the spot didn't flip on you and that you controlled it, then you would you would do away with checks and balances. What is DUI about? It's not about the DUI.
DEI,
What
DEI.
DEI? What agencies did he destroy? All the ones that had to do with checks and balances of government. He brought out Elon Musk in for just that particular reason. After he was done, he left and he just got a check for $1 trillion. So the reality is we live in a spot, man, with 350 million people, man. 1% of the population own all the wealth. Got three dudes that have the net worth of the bottom 250 million people in America. And you call this you ain't never had a democracy in America. At best, you had a republic, and you don't have that now. You have a courtocracy. You know what I'm saying? And and it's going to get worse because people keep believing that this can work, and it
So what do you
can't.
mean by courtocracy? What does that mean?
Corporations run America. They've been doing that since the
Okay, that's
13th
basically what
Amendment.
Magnetic was saying.
Yeah, the 13th. Listen, Lincoln was a slick cat, man. You can call him the father of emancipation if you want to. He had 113 slaves. When his wife died of rebellion, he had an opportunity to free them. He sold them. He said, I kid in his memoirs, he said, listen, I'm not dismayed by the plight of the African. In fact, I could care less. I only care about the State of the Union. You know, that was his signing off remark. The reality is the 13th Amendment says slavery has been abolished till such time as one commits a felony offense, right? But it also says property has now become people. And what happened to corporations in exchange, right? We went from textilism, mercantilism into industrial, and Eli Whitney and the cotton gin, that they can pick what 300 slaves could pick in an hour. The reality is we went into industrialism, right? The scourge, or what would be called the scourge later on, capitalism, came a little further down the road. But the reality is capitalism is just a word that describes an idea of commerce, right? To create more capital. But in the hands of a spiritless one is where it does all the damage, because now everything in the world is on the table. And listen, man, this is about humanity, man. You can put all the politics and the rhetoric you want into this, but at the end of the day, this is about the planet, man. This is about the species. This is about humanity. You know what I'm saying?
That's
And
right. Like I said the other day,
is this
once the
what you want?
Martians come, we're all Earthlings. Ain't nobody think about no color. Yes,
What the
sir.
reality?
That's Imam Talib had said that first.
Yeah,
When the Martians come, we're all gonna be Earthlings.
well, the reality is, if you were sitting on the outside looking in, what would you say?
Right.
If you,
So I just want to interject. right? So, Magnetic has said something about Obama and Trump and Obama versus Trump, right? So I've never seen ICE in the streets like I've seen them now. If in fact,
Listen,
I didn't even know they exist until Trump's presidency. I've never seen the
That's
military come out during Obama. Now, I'm not a fan of Obama, nor am I a fan of Trump. You know what I mean? So
listen
I'm just trying to figure out, twiddly dee, twiddly dum. You know what I'm saying? You could call it Democrat, pixie
I
crat,
uh,
you call it whatever you want, but I mean, to
I,
me,
I was specifying the
it's all the
difference.
same, and I think they
Uh,
both did. First of all, I know Obama. I was happy because of the fact that he was the first black president. I was happy because he's very articulate and he wasn't into no scandals, but he didn't do anything for us as a people. He didn't do anything. Neither has Trump. That's my feeling about that. But go ahead, brother Magnetic.
Trump has actually done more for black people than Obama has. Um, but putting that to the side, I wanted to make a point
No,
that
go ahead.
has
Go ahead into it a little bit. What has he done?
well, if you look at he got the Criminal Reform Act passed, which was a bipartisan bill that lowered mandatory minimums and got a lot of early releases for our people who were locked up. He also donated more to historically black colleges and universities than any president in history.
Wow, I never heard of
Um,
that.
yeah, but this is what I'm saying where, and I know that a lot of the things I say make me sound like I'm some sort of waving
No,
a
no, not
flag
at
for
all. Go
Trump.
ahead,
Now
brother.
let me make my point. Um, I'm not some sort of MAGA Trump supporter. I didn't vote for him. I am just dealing with the facts, right? I just deal with the facts as they are. So I know that CNN, NBC, ABC, I've never seen anything like this where 90% of the media turns against this guy in every possible way on every possible show. I used to hate Trump. And so let's say when he was running in 2016, and I got into a debate with a dude from, I think it was Ecuador, some country in South America, because he was pro Trump. And I was like, bro, he's racist, right? He's just going to deport you as soon as he gets into office. I'm saying stuff like this to him. And the dude started hitting me with facts where I had to get out of my bubble and my feelings and go, yo, all right, you know what? I'm gonna look into that. I'm gonna look into that. I'm gonna look into what you're saying over here. And when I did that, I was like, oh shit, why isn't the media talking about any of this stuff? Sometimes Fox News does. That's one of the only stations or places that you'll see anything at all that's positive about Trump and what he's doing. But these guys did not want him in power. They did not want him to get elected. And I said, well, why? Why is that? Why? I've never seen a dude get so much hate. Where before he even got into politics, he was actually a Democrat. A lot of people don't know that. And before he got into politics, he was voting Democrat. And when all these people that you see hate him now, like Oprah and them on The View and all of that, go look at him on The View before he got into politics. They loved him. They were kissing his ass. They were hugging him,
A lot
talking
of
about how,
rappers love him.
yeah,
They
yeah.
said, yeah.
But I'm saying specifically these people who are in the media that you see on these shows that hate him now loved the dude before he came into office. And then it was like they all
Nicki
got handed
Minaj
this.
loves him to death.
Well, now, yeah, but they all got handed a script that said, you got to hate this guy. He's a racist. He's Hitler. He's this. He's that. And anything that he did that was positive, they didn't report on it. Anything that he did that could be perceived as negative, they blew it up and exacerbated it. Whereas, let's say Clinton or Trump or or Obama or Biden did something similar, the exact same thing, or something worse, they didn't report on any of that stuff. So I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. Why do they hate this guy so much? So the more I went into it, the more I saw, oh, they're afraid of this guy because he has the ability to expose a lot of their nonsense. He's not really one of them in the sense that he's not a politician. He's not a career politician. He wasn't coming in with that, he broke up the monopoly. For the last 40 years, we've had Bush, Clinton, Obama. Bush Jr., and the other Bushes are also in government. Jeb Bush, Marvin Bush, on and on. The same thing with the Clintons. The same, there's a monopoly that they had, and they were running game on this country, and Trump pretty much put the kibosh on that. So they've been handling him very harshly for that. And I really think when he says he wants to make America great again, I really think that he wants this country to be better. Whether you can argue, oh, it was never great for black people and all that stuff. Uh, the country has serious issues. And he said, yo, I live here. I do business here. I want this thing to work. I want this thing to go back to what it was when I was on top in the 80s or whatever it is, right? Free market trade, this and that. So his idea of America is a bit romanticized and a bit, rosy. But at the end of the day, I'll take a guy who wants the country to do better and to go back to basic things like traditional values. Like, hey, uh, I don't think guys should be able to put on a dress and walk in the women's bathroom. But this is common sense, right? Or I don't think that a fifth grade kid should be given hormonal drugs and ultimately have his penis chopped off so that he can become a woman when he's not even old enough to make these kinds of decisions. He's not old enough to drink. He's not old enough to vote. He's not old enough to even consent to sex, which is why if he had sex, it would be rape, statutory rape. But somehow he's able to mutilate his genitals. Somehow he's able to change his sex. You see, so things like this, I'm like, whoa, whoa, what is going on here? Right? So who's backing that stuff? Why are teachers, pushing these agendas and basically grooming children in classrooms? Why are these crazy ideologies being espoused on university campuses that are radicalizing young women, mostly, but radicalizing people in general, but mostly radicalizing young women into all kinds of things that are actually detrimental for themselves and ultimately, by default, detrimental for the country, right? That's why our birth rates are so low. That's why we have all of these, one of the many reasons why we have all of these many broken homes, why women have basically they started hating men. There's these issues are being exacerbated and funded, and it starts in think tanks, right? So you got things like the Tavistock Institute. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they come up with these ideas. And the first place they implement these ideas are on the schools and the colleges, mostly the colleges and universities, because a lot of the people in these think tanks are actually college professors. So they go to work, they start teaching and espousing this stuff. Those people get radicalized, then they go out and become politicians, they become CEOs, they become whatever they become in society. And next thing you know, you look up and that's how, some woman is screaming because there's a dude with a beard and a dress on in the bathroom, or a parent is like, wait a minute, why is my son coming home in a dress? What's going on here, right? So when I looked at that and said, okay, well, this is cut and dry. This is common sense. I don't want that. So when Trump is coming in saying, yo, this is crazy, these guys are nuts, we need to reverse a lot of this stuff. So DEI was one of those things as well. I guess that could be a conversation as well, because DEI
How do you
actually
feel
doesn't,
about DEI?
yeah, DEI does not help. If you look at the effect of it doesn't help black people. It actually, white women are the main beneficiaries of DEI. Um, and this is just the facts, right? White women benefit more from DEI than anybody else. So the idea that somebody should get put in a certain situation, whether it be accepted into a college, whether it be put in some sort of position in government or whatever it is based on DEI, is a terrible idea. It's a terrible policy. The idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion is flawed from the beginning, because you're never going to get equity of outcome if you're not going according to merit. If I'm just giving you a position or a job or admitting you to this school, let's use Harvard, for example. You got a guy who's black or Puerto Rican or whatever, and he's got, I don't know, maybe 1100 on his SATs, which wouldn't get him into Harvard normally, but it would get him into a good school and he could go on and have a great life or whatever, have a great career. But because of DEI, that now gets him into Harvard. So now he's in Harvard competing with, Asians that have 1600s on their test scores, and then he's not able to really keep up with them. So then it's like, well, oh well, the school must be racist because you're not doing well here. The tests are biased, and then we keep moving the goalposts, and really it ends up hurting us in the long run because we can get a 1600, we can prove that we're capable on our own merit without, oh well, you're black, so you need extra help, you need handouts, you need this, you need that, and we do deserve certain things, but not based on just skin color. Like it goes back to us being more autonomous about how we do things. Um, we got to ask ourselves these questions. If these people hate us so much and these people are so racist, why are they so quick to promote DEI? Why are they so quick to show us all of these police killings on the TV? Why are they so quick to push these agendas on us that, Black Lives Matter and things like that? That, I turned on the TV and I see NBA jerseys and Black Lives Matter on the damn basketball court. That's because they love us so much? I don't think so. These are the same people who hate us. So why are they doing this? It's for the reasons that I was talking about earlier. This is really things that are ultimately hurting us and sabotaging us. The same way feminism works. Everything that feminism pushes on women are ultimately things that destroy women, right? Feminism is anti-woman, right? It's telling them to not be women. That's why when you see a feminist, she's not feminine. She's usually very masculine. She's usually very angry. She's usually, got short hair. She's doesn't have a husband. She doesn't, you know, nothing about it is feminine, right? So what we're seeing here is the same thing happening to black people. We're being used as a pawn and as a tool in somebody else's game, and they're appealing to our emotions. They're appealing to our ego. They're appealing to our sense of longing for justice and things like that, and manipulating and twisting and distorting those things for their gain and not ours. So
Well,
that's
let
how
me
I feel
interject
about
for a
that.
second. According to
Sure.
stats, they say that 2,600 people uh, lost jobs and positions due to DEI. These cuts representing a 13% reduction in dedicated DEI roles. I mean, I don't know. I think that really hurts, and I know that the Sherry show. It's a few shows that are now cut. Only black shows are being cut right now. And that's what I'm seeing. So I don't know if you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing, but
When you say shows, what do you mean?
yeah, like
TV
talk
shows?
shows. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, talk
Uh,
shows. You know, those are the stats. 2,600. How do you feel about that?
well, I mean, that's a broad question. It depends on the situation. Like I know, just as an example, Joy Reid was fired and canceled. Um, I'm just thinking this maybe these are the examples of who you were talking
Sherry
about.
Shepard.
Don Lemon was
Yeah.
also fired, but they were fired because they were terrible and they lied a lot.
Ooh.
When you go back and you look at their track records, they were doing nothing but doing exactly what I was just talking about. They were pushing racial animus, pushing divisiveness, pushing fear mongering, and getting everybody riled up. And at the end of the day, let's take Don Lemon for example, right? Oh, well, America's racist, Trump is racist, these people hate you, and this and that and the other. Meanwhile, this guy's a homo married to a white guy. He's got white he's having sex with a white man every night, but he's trying to convince me that white people are out to get me. This doesn't add up. These people are playing games and they're being paid to do so. That's why they had careers. So, when Trump comes into power, he's looking at that and going, this ain't good for the country. And it isn't. I totally agree with him. I think Joy Reid was terrible. I think Don Lemon was terrible. I think Kamala Harris would have been horrible if she got elected. She was completely incompetent. She's a great example of why DEI is terrible. Here's a woman who had no right to be where she was. She slept her way to the top. She was a whore who was basically used to push agendas. So they said, okay, well, yeah, we can use her. They pushed her up because she was a woman of color. So they said, all right, just say you're black because she's Indian. So she cosplays as a black woman. And if you look at her track record, all she did in California was lock up black people for stupid stuff like weed. She went after black parents whose children were playing hooky and said, if your kid don't go to school, we're going to come lock you up, lock the parent up. So a lot of the things that she was doing before she got into politics when she was in California harmed black people. Yet we got convinced somehow that this woman who was completely incompetent, couldn't articulate herself to save her life. Everything she said was a word salad that didn't make any sense. And we believed that this woman was going to be doing something for us, pretending to be black, by the way, not even black. And we fell for it because we wanted a female Obama. It's the same thing with a lot of these other black politicians, Jasmine Crockett, Hakeem Jeffries, they're all being used. So they're ideological puppets that are put there because they're black and will push agendas that harm black people. So
So
we
you
go
don't think
for it
Trump is a
every
puppet?
time.
You don't think Trump is a puppet
Of who?
of Israel?
To some degree, yes.
Okay. With
My
that being
biggest
said,
issue, my biggest issue with Trump, just to wrap it up, my biggest issue with Trump was his support of Israel. But I had to say, damn, every president pretty much since Israel's inception has been in the pocket of Israel.
that's true.
Israel has put this country in its pocket decades ago, and we're basically being controlled by Israel for a long time. So I think that they've been blackmailing every president as soon as they get into office. They say, "Oh, I'm not really for Israel." Oh yeah, take a look at this photo. Take a look at what we got here. And if they don't got nothing on you, they'll just threaten to kill your family or whatever they do to get you to go along with their agenda. So Israel is wild, and
Right.
they're a menace to the planet. And in fact, just came to mind something that I
Real
wanted to
quick, real
interject.
quick.
And yeah, real quick into this conversation that wasn't brought up at all, which is one of the things that this country lost a long time ago, back in 1913, is when we got taken over by Jews through the Federal Reserve Act, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar with the creature from Jekyll Island and the fact that President Woodrow Wilson basically signed the country away to the Rothschilds back then, right? And we haven't been right ever since. We've been overtaxed. Fractional reserve banking has ultimately destroyed this damn country and has been destroying it. So it's not even like you go from the founding fathers and everything that we talked about with the First Amendment and all of that and what the country was intended to be. That was derailed in 1913 and it ain't gotten anywhere near right ever since. So
So there's been a lot of implants. Go ahead, Sahji.
Yeah, let me say something about this thing, man. Let me tell you something about politics in America, man. I mean, I get people have their position and they have their thoughts and their ideas about it, man. But listen, presidencies in America, I'm a black male in America. I go all the way back to Eisenhower. And I've listened to these guys. I'm not quoting them from something I read or something I saw. I heard Eisenhower's last speech. I was a kid. I heard it. You know. I heard Kennedy. I heard Lyndon B. Johnson. I heard Nixon. I heard I heard these cats, man. You know, uh, politics in this country, man, is snake oil salesman, this game. If you buy into that shit, man, then you get what you deserve. The reality is the whole thing is about, you know, uh, manipulation and moving people to take sides. And it's again, it fosters the first stratagem of warfare. And the warfare here in this country, man, is not a political one. You know what I'm saying? It's not a political one. It's about divide and conquer, right? It's about the few against the many. It's always been that, with the founding fathers, with their perverted ass. It's always been that. You can be smart and be a pervert at the same time. You don't sleep with an 11-year-old girl and call yourself some kind of astute scholar. The reality is you don't pump wine and liquor out all over the place and stand on a boat and pronounce yourself, the god of a new fledgling country, man, without having your dark side. I'm not sitting here to say that, everything that happened in America was bad or horrible. But the reality is, I'm a realist too. And politics in this country, man, has never worked for black folks. You can take whatever side you want, as far as I'm concerned. You can be a Republican, a Democrat, you can be a neutral. You can be whatever you want to be in here. It ain't about you any goddamn way. I don't care how well you speak, what you've read, where you came from, what you believe in, what you got and what you don't got. At the end of the day, it ain't about you. And if you think I'm lying, watch what happens. Because, see, you can't take none of the wealth with you, first of all. So the smoke screen is about the reality of what we really are in, the context. I don't even, politics, as far as I'm concerned, man, it's an idiot's game. If you really want the experiment to be real, start over. But most of us don't have the balls to do that because we like the little luxuries we have. We're not willing to give up any of that. We're not willing to start over at the very bottom again and really construct something that could really be a utopia. So we take what we get. And you know what? We probably deserve it, because it's conversations like this one, right, that really kind of make me think about, how adverse the effects of the political arena really, really are. I mean, there was one president that I saw out of all of them that I've been around for that had any seam of decency. And he died building houses, for people who didn't have any. I don't know of any other
Carter.
president that did that. And that was, my man down there, the peanut farmer, you know. And they made him a lame duck when he came in office. He couldn't do anything, Basically, they shut him down. But Trump is an asshole. Trump is an idiot, an asshole. He's like he's worse than you know, and he pits people intentionally against one another. See, it's these conversations that just brings all that in to light for me, and that's the worst kind of individual, the one that pits you against yourself. You know what I'm saying? The reality is the presidency is not a president. He's a CEO. He works for software corporations, man. He works for the oil cats, man. He's a stooge. And so was the last one before him, and the one before that, and the one that got in office. And the first thing he did was bail out Sachs Goldman and Lee Iacocca. You know what I'm saying? And the cat before that, went over there and, brought some towers down so he could go steal some oil. All this kind of convoluted bullshit that we like to play games with in our heads about what this is and what that is. And at the end of the day, man, people are dying. A country is going down the drain right in front of you. You know what I'm saying? And it's not about the rhetoric. It's not about, the position you taking. You know what I'm saying? It's about what's really happening. What's really going on in the world. People are dying in the Gaza Strip, man. There's a genocide taking place over there. People in Venezuela are played away from eating each other. Why is that happening? People in Iran, man, I just watched them blow a dude up with his wife, his granddaughter, his grandkids, murdered. Bam. He never dropped a bomb. And I'm saying this is on the pretense of him enriching uranium. The reality is you got enough shit over here to crack the planet in half. You know what I'm saying? What about China? If you was really scared of Iran, I mean, so what was it really about? Oil. We know what it's really about. Oil. I'm not playing games with these idiots about what's really happening in the world. The reality is that's about oil. He's in the pocket of the oil man, and that's the job he's doing for him. And to show you, you might have been right about Israel, but we know about, if you know anything about Israel and the Belfort Papers, and you know about the Zionist Pact, you know who Israel really works for at the end of the day. They're the police department in the Middle East for the U.S. They've been there since Kissinger really put them in power. Saddam Hussein was trained here in Fort Benning in 1969. Pinochet was trained here. Suharto was trained here. Papadaktu Valle, all disassemblers. Go read the history. I mean, if they didn't change it, because they might have changed it on you. Don't read nothing current. Go get a real book and really look into some of this stuff. Go back and study some of the history from the scholars that really wrote history from the people's position, not from the aristocracy. Go read Howard Zinn. You know what I'm saying? Go read Peter Dammons. See, I read these cats. Go read Eric Williams. Go read Rod Carew. Please go read Franz Fanon. Please, just take a chance and go read Franz Fanon, Edward Blyden. Go read Sertimer. Step out your box. Go read Franz Fox. Go check out some of these cats, man, because there's more to the story than what you've been getting. You know what I'm saying? And the idea of feminism, listen, man. A brother argued with me one day about his wife and said, yo, man, she's horrible. I said, listen, man, can you imagine being in the world without her? Imagine if there was no women. Imagine a world without. He said, what do you mean, brother? I said, just what I said. Imagine being in a world without them. You should treat them like a queen. She should have a space next to you, not behind you. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't feel that way, fine, I get it. Loneliness is a hell of a partner. But the reality is, right, feminism didn't come from the idea of women wanting to be men. They just wanted a place in the world. And they earn that. Listen, they are the mothers, man, of your children. They should be held in high esteem, irregardless of what you might think about them. Hoes, whores, or whatever the case might be. I worked in a whorehouse. I have an utmost respect for them. Why they work. You know what I'm saying? And they have no problem doing their job like some men. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is, man, we can't castigate people, man, because of our opinions about what we think. Because sometimes what you think is not what you know. And I really, am saying this not to personalize the kind what you said, and I don't take any offense to anything because it's your opinion, and I respect your opinion. And I think that's what this is all about, this dialogue, right? But the reality is, man, we have to look closer. We have to pay closer attention, and sometimes it's more important to look in the mirror, right, than look out. Sometimes it's more about who we are as individuals. See, if we want to find the person that can change these things, sometimes we be looking around for somebody to do it, and it's staring you right in the face, right? It may be you, but do you really have the continuity to do it? Do you really have the demeanor? Do you have the spiritual equity, right, to champion a cause like that? Because, see, I'm not looking for leaders. You know what I'm saying? I've never been a follower. I don't care who's running this or running that. I'm thinking about what is it that I need to do as an individual? And I think the revolution is about self. I don't think it's about a soapbox. I don't think it's about a position. I think it's about becoming the highest idea that I was created to become. You were brought here, came through your mother's womb, dropped on the floor, bow, come out now. We learn a few things, and now we have to ask us, why am I here? Who am I? What am I? Why am I? What is that about? To me, that has more credence. I get we talking about the First Amendment. I get we talking about the Bill of Rights, right? But life, liberty, and happiness and freedom don't come from without. It comes from within. I'm not going to get it through a political party. I'm not going, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to get it through an educational institution. which I've been through, a couple of them. I'm not going to get it, necessarily from a book, but where I think I can find it is if I pay close enough attention to the self, man. If I start to really look in and find out what's going on, I think the questions I'm looking for exist right inside of me. I don't need a Trump. I don't need an Obama. I don't need I get we talking about these guys, but that's part of the distraction in this country is to look out things. They dangle carrots for us. Oh, you want to do this. Oh, you should do it like this. Oh, see what they're doing. Oh, see, why can't we do this? What about you personally? Who are we fundamentally? And I think when we do that, and you made a great point about the idea of the community versus the family versus the community versus the nation, right? But you left one thing out, you. See, none of that is real without you. You see what I'm saying? We can be a voyeur, a witness, we can be the one viewing it, but what about you and I? You see what I'm saying? So before family can exist, I have to understand it's necessary. Before community can become a reality, right? I have to be able to see myself in it, right? Before a nation can become real, I got to be willing to adopt it. It can't adopt me. I have to adopt it. And that's where I draw the line with all this. See, I'm not adopting uh, the bankrupt because America is bankrupt spiritually, not religiously, spiritually bankrupt.
By that, elaborate on that a little bit.
Listen, man, it's built on sand. The hypocrisy that started the country is what ferments it right now. It's what's giving it real toxicity right now. You build it on sand. Those glorious, those beautiful words, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the middle of a genocide. That's why I go back to the history, because if I want to know the nature of something, I go study its birth. I don't want to look at it in the middle. I want to look at it when it's 26 years old. Where did you come from? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the middle of a genocide and chattel slavery. And it has no inference on what's going on today. Listen, you walk down the street, what's your brother calling his brother? What he calling his other brother? Nigga. Don't have no bearing on us, huh? Nigga. You know? So now,
Can I jump in and piggyback off that?
Yeah. 1 second. Let me just one more thing. And now, if they ain't calling you nigga, they calling you something else. And the reality is, why is that, man? Where we as individuals, and I'm not even talking about race, I'm talking about human beings. Because see, the idea of humanity scares them to death because it signifies unity. See, when you start bringing people together, black lives, white lives, green lives, yellow lives, brown lives, the idea of immigration looks real small. The idea of political parties look juvenile. You know what I'm saying? The idea of dollars and cents becomes, a little less tepid. A
little less tempest. So brother Magnetic, come on in, brother. Let me hear you.
I just wanted to make a couple points, but one, just kind of going off of what it sounds like you extrapolated from what I said about feminism. I'm not bashing women. I'm not a misogynist, and I'm not speaking about the women themselves. I'm speaking about the ideology that they didn't understand. Yeah, they didn't understand what was being put on them. So in essence, why they pushed, one of the many reasons or a few of the reasons they were pushing this stuff was to weaken the nuclear family. And also because this is a corporation, it was a business move. So they sat back and looked at the books and said, all right, we're getting these taxes, but if we could tax these women, we would be making double the money. So now they convinced the woman to go out of the home and go get a job. And now you're taxing two people in one household. You see, where before you were only taxing one person. You were taxing the man or the father or the husband. Now you can tax the mother, the wife, and the father and the husband. You see? So now you're getting double the tax money. And who is the main spender? Who's going more inclined to go out and go shopping, right? Who's more loose with the purse string? Women are. Women are much bigger consumers than men. When things break and a man has it, he's going to try and fix it before he goes out and buys another one. A woman is going to just go out and buy another one, or she's just going to shop. Marketing and advertising is, I think it's 70% or 65% more effective on women than it is on men. That's why most of the ads are targeted to women. So now you're getting you're freeing women to be to go out into the world and be preyed upon, right? Where they would be home and protected by these men, right? Who they say, oh no, that's slavery. They convinced women that that was slavery, being under the protection and provision of their husband. That was slavery. You need to go out here in the world and you know get charged taxes and work these jobs for us. So now basically the husband is replaced with the boss and the CEO and the system and the government, right? And if they don't have a man, you know, that's when the welfare system comes into play, and that's how they got they broke our homes, right? We went from a time where Black people in this country had the highest marriage rate. We had the most intact families. And also we were the most moral people in this country. We were the paragon of morality and traditional family values in this country. And they flipped that upside down, and it started with the white woman, right? And when I talked about modern feminism, meaning what happened in the 60s. You had women like Gloria Steinem, who was a CIA asset and is basically a CIA agent who convinced women to do these things, but also went after Black women and convinced Black women to join her fight against her man, right? Black men never had the ability to really dominate and oppress. When they talk about the patriarchy, we just got free, right? So when were we putting our neck on our women, putting our boot on the neck of our women? We weren't doing that. So they convinced Black women to jump in the white woman's fight with her man, right? And then turn that back on us as a part of this white man patriarchy when that wasn't even us. That wasn't even our role. You see what I'm saying? So they got us in a trick bag there. And now look, you can just all you gotta do is ask the average Black woman, do you need a man? Do you how do you what your views are on men? Women, Black women are taught, women in general, but especially Black women are taught from birth damn near. A man is a predator. A man is going to try to take advantage of you. You need to go out here and get what you can. You need to scam these men. You need to do this and do that because you can't trust no man. You need to make sure you got your own, you know, and they basically demonize men in the eyes of Black women from birth. And then they use the propaganda of every TV show you saw. What would you see? If it was a family show, the husband is stupid. He's incompetent. He's the butt of all the jokes. The wife is mature, more intelligent than the husband. She's cleaning up all his mess. He's basically just another one of the kids. You pick a sitcom, that's what you're going to see, right? Uh, Before feminism, you would have shows like, just to give you an example, Happy Days, Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, things like that. After feminism, we got things like Married with Children and, you know, all of these shows, Malcolm in the Middle, or you pick whatever show you want, and you're going to see an incompetent, immature, sloppy, weak man who, you know, it's like, well, who would want that? So all of these things were used to propagandize masculinity. You know, that's when they came up with these terms, toxic masculinity. All of this is it's a psychological operation to create social engineering that ultimately benefits the corporation that harms us. I'll leave it there.
I've never ran into women like that. I've been around long.
Really?
I've been married twice. Yeah, I've never ran into
Well,
women like
that's
that.
look at how old are you, brother?
I'm 70.
Okay, so you come from a time where women weren't like that. But if you're talking to women, uh, let's say 50 and under, they're all programmed. I think the other two gentlemen on this chat here should be able to agree with me on that. That if you're talking to a woman that's 50 and under of any race, but particularly black women, they have an aversion towards men. They view men in a negative light. They view them their
No,
role.
I think you're typecasting all women, and
Well, I'm
that's
generalizing. I am
yeah,
generalizing. Obviously,
yeah,
all women are
yeah.
not like this. Of course not.
That's
We have feminine women,
exactly.
we have but
Mhm.
generalizations are important. You know,
Yeah,
generalizations exist for a reason.
but generalizations sometimes become stigmas, and they become they become they become profiles, man. They become things that people use against other people. And that's what I'm talking about. This is where we have to be careful, man. How what we say and how we say it, because everybody is not your opinion. You get what I'm saying? And I know I get where you're coming from. But what I'm saying is that, man, I've met some sisters, man, some straight up. I mean, I know a bunch of them, man, and I've never had that
How old are
problem.
those women? How old are those women?
They all my age. Some of them are young. Some of them are young, man.
Okay.
I'm in
When they under
So
Junior.
50, he's trying to say what they under 50. When they
Yeah,
50 or under.
yeah. Some of them are 50. Some of them are under. Some of them are my age. I'm talking about women in general.
so
I'm
why do
running.
our women have the highest abortion rates? Have
Because you live
you know,
again, you live in a
right.
country, man, that is absent morality. Yet you live in it's not the women, it's the society you live in. See, that's what we have to be careful.
But
Stop
why is it
making
our people? How do we go
but
from the most
but
moral
listen,
people in the
I don't
but
think
country?
we have
listen,
the highest abortion rate
listen
according
what
to
I'm
stats, man. I mean, somebody could
What?
look it up, but
yeah,
Yes.
I don't.
no, no, it's not even about the stats. What I'm saying is that we
Black
have to
women
be
are the least
careful.
married women in the country.
Yeah,
One
because
in
the
four
institute
black women will get married.
because the institution of marriage in this country
Look
is
it up.
flawed. It's flawed along with everything else. Again,
Of course
you
it's
can't
flawed.
expect, but you can't expect this. You can't expect something good, right? You can't expect something good and pure to come out of something impure. See, that's where I'm at with this. We keep looking for perfection in a system that is imperfect. Yet
Who
this
said anything about
society
perfection?
this is what you're describing. You're describing,
It's
Malcolm, the system. Listen, marriage in this country is a contract. It's a financial agreement. It's between you, that other person, the state, the federal government, and whatever
Mhm.
religious institution you involved in. So you know what? A lot of sisters say, listen, man, I'm not in there. A lot of brothers saying that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not getting involved with that shit because that is a financial agreement. It has nothing to do with love. Now, if you talk to people about love, which is what I'm talking about, they're not talking about those agreements. They're not talking about what connects them to this country. See, this is the problem. This is where we get caught up in calling the victims, right, the perpetrators. And we forget where we are. And we say, oh, look at these folks, man. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Why are they acting like this? Well, look where they are. How about where are they? How about where are they? I've been places, man, where people live in the bush and they have more sense of humanity than the cat with the Benz and the two homes and the bank account and the electric toothbrush and all that. They have more decency. They have
Electric
more
toothbrush.
connection. Yeah, yeah. They have more connection to the planet that they live on than dudes that lay claim to all this modernization, all these things that we call essential now. And the funny thing is, man, the funny
And
thing
none of
is,
those people bought into feminism and all of the propaganda that we're
well, they
talking
don't
about.
have,
They still
but
have the
listen,
traditional values that I was talking about, which is why their families are intact. Our women were incentivized to choose government handouts, to choose welfare and going out and getting working for white corporations over their own husbands. That's a fact.
is that the country you live in or the society that you in, or is it really your woman?
And marriage is not about love. Not primarily. Marriage,
I'm
we
married.
used to know that marriage was about duty and obligations
Yeah,
to,
well,
for survival,
somehow
so
it
that
got
our people
confused.
can survive.
Yeah,
So our
somehow it got
women say, "Oh, he's not making my he. I don't tingle for him no more, so I'm
yeah.
out of here."
Well,
That's what new women do.
somehow we
Old
got confused.
women from your generation knew what duty was, knew what honor was. So they were staying in situations, whether good, bad, or indifferent, because they took vows and they honored those vows. They said, you know what? That's the man that I chose. That's the man that I'm going to follow. That is the head. That is my head. Right. So even if we're talking about Christian values, Islamic values, whatever your religion was, that's what you were taught in that religion, that the head of your household was going to be the man, right? Feminism said, oh, no, 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 no. That's a bunch of nonsense. That's the devil talking, right? Oh, you don't need a man. Oh, we'll just give you we'll give you welfare checks. We'll give you food stamps. You don't need a man. You could go work for this corporation here and do this and do that. And they'll go to that corporation and they'll listen to their boss more than they'll listen to their own man at home. That's a fact. That's what's been
Well,
going on for the last 40 years.
well, this is what I'm saying. I'm saying this is
And
not a
it's
problem.
had horrible results.
Yeah,
Horrible results.
this is not what women created. This is what your
No,
society created. You see
I
what I'm saying?
specified that women were being
Yeah, and the
used because
welfare
they're
state,
followers.
and the welfare state wasn't created for black women. It was actually created, came on, it came after the Depression, man. It was actually created for the Jews, man.
Jews, right? Jews, right? And Jews have used it more than us, but it was weaponized against
Yeah.
us. All of these
Well,
things were weaponized against us, and our women
exactly.
are also now a part of that weaponization. See, once
Yeah.
they start listening, it's just like the story of Adam and Eve all over again, right? She bit that fruit. She didn't have to. She could have said, "Oh no, I ain't taking that. I'm listening to my husband. I'm listening to my father. I'm honoring the structure that was put in place before me to honor with that's my duty. No, I don't need that. No, thank you. No, thank you. I don't need that. No, they bit that fruit, and the results were disastrous. So, Brother Hassan, if you want to look up those statistics, the marriage statistics, the abortion statistics, even the imprisonment statistics, all of the statistics that came out of feminism were disastrous. And in fact, when we talk about those high incarceration rates, which went up 300% from 1970 to, I believe, 2001, 300% the prison rate jumped up. Why? One of the main reasons, one of the main contributing factors to especially young black men, but males in general going to prison is fatherless homes. Fatherless homes are one of the main contributing factors in why these young black men join gangs, why they end up in prison, and things of that nature. So
Well, you were right.
feminism,
You were right, Magnetic. As far as because I just looked it up, it said that
yeah,
black women have the highest abortion rate and ratio, but
by
that's
far.
38%, right? But
But
white
it's not
Uh-huh.
women are
because of
right there at 36%.
yeah, but it's
They're
not
not too
because of
far behind. And then come
yeah, but
Hispanics.
it's not because of feminism. It's because of inadequate health care. It's because of poverty.
No, no, it's not.
Brother, listen, yo, wait a minute, I'm right here in
Well, poverty,
Oakland.
yes, I agree. Poverty
Yeah,
plays a
it's
factor.
inadequate health care, man. I mean, a premature. I'm telling you, it's
These women are
inadequate.
having abortions like they order pizzas.
Well, again, as far as I'm
Are you
concerned,
paying attention to what's going on in the culture with younger people?
listen, man, the ones that was having all the abortions when I was coming up was white girls.
Okay, so who's having them now? What's going on
Well, I
right now?
don't,
What's
but
going on right now is women are having abortions like the way we order DoorDash. They're going
well,
out to the
that part
club.
of it.
They're having sex unprotected. They get pregnant, and if they keep the baby, it's because the man won't. They want the man, and they can't get the man to marry them. They can't get the man to commit to them. So they say, "All right, I'm going to keep his baby and put him on child support," which is another hustle. But if they don't want the man, they just go, "Oh, well, if he gets me pregnant, I'll just go kill the baby tomorrow
But
or
don't you
next week
see?
or
Don't
whatever."
don't you see? This is the dilemma for a society, man, that has lost its way. This is not just because women do this; they do it out of osmosis. They do this because this is what the society tells them to do. It's
Right,
a
right.
this is this is an
They're under a
American
satanic
thing.
influence. They're
This
under
is
a satanic influence,
well, I just say this. They're spiritually bankrupt, and the reality is,
which is
man,
pretty much the
behind
same thing in different words.
yeah, the reality is behind every bad woman, man, there's a bunch of dudes. It's a bunch of guys. There's a bunch of
I
guys,
mean,
brother. I mean, you can't blame it all. You can't blame it all on them and not take any culpability yourself. You may not be a bad guy. I'm saying the reality is a lot of these sisters, man, you don't know what they go through. And
I
to use them
okay.
like a statistic, and you just to paint a statistic on them and not see the person behind the number is doing them a disservice. And all I'm saying is that, numbers, I can make numbers say anything, just like I can make words say anything.
Yeah,
The
but that's why
reality
I'm
is,
using the real world. What's going on? All you got to do is look at the
yeah,
TV shows, listen to the music,
no,
talk
no,
to
no,
the
no, no.
people, and it's going to reflect those
Yeah,
statistics
yeah,
and why they
yeah. Go
exist.
go talk to the people, man. Leave the TV shows alone because that's part of the propaganda network. The reality is, as people who are, if we want to change things about the not about this country, about ourselves, we need to get out there and interact with people. We need to have discussions with folks. We need to open up ads for this kind of conversation. We need to have the ability to sit down and have dialogue, not virtual conversations, not YouTube, not Instagram and Twitter. I'm talking about sitting down with people and talking because this is how you salvage a society. This is how you salvage yourselves. This is how you salvage a family, a community, and a nation is by communicating. And see, that's what we're losing in this right here, right? Everybody, we're a society of opinionators. Everybody got an opinion, right? Nobody's got a critical thought, and that's scary. You see what I'm saying? It's nice to have an opinion, right? But where's the original thinkers? Where's the creative thinkers? Where's the people, man, that are looking for solutions as opposed to problems? And see, when I look at a problem, right, the first thing I look at is myself. I can't look outside myself. I have to look in because this is where the answers are. But see, we've been taught to look out. Yo, this is wrong. That's wrong. Look at this. Look at that. And the reality is, what part in all that did you play?
Oh, I totally agree with you. I was the one, harping on accountability when it comes to us as individuals, when it comes to us as a people, when it comes to us as a nation. We have to look at the part that we play because like you're saying, it's very easy to point the finger and go, look at what the white man did. Look at what Trump did. Look at what this one did. Look what they're doing over here. And that's why I'm not an activist. As a younger man, I used to consider myself an activist. I marched with Khalid Muhammad. I was somebody who was getting out there in the streets and getting involved in all of this, getting involved in all these political activities and sitting in with meetings and all this. And then ultimately I realized, oh, activism is just a deflection from self accountability, self improvement, and really you can't change the world. The best way or the only way to change the world is by changing yourself, right? The
That
entire
we agree
world,
on.
the
Yeah.
entire world is just you pushed out. So if you're not working on yourself, that's why, when you see a lot of activists, they have a lot of problems. If you really look at their lives, these are usually broken people. They, maybe they're obese, maybe they're on drugs, maybe they have
No, no,
domestic
no, no.
problems.
Don't do that, Magnetic, because that's
They
not
have
the
all kinds.
case.
What I'm saying is they have that.
You're, you're,
Everybody
you're,
has issues, but my point is that they're using whatever that thing is, whatever you're being an activist about, saving the planet, saving the trees, saving the bees, saving black people, saving black women, saving the immigrants, whatever you see these people out here protesting about, it's a deflection from internal issues that they haven't solved within themselves. So because they are broken, they're looking at a broken world and going out instead of within. Where if everybody was fixing themselves and focusing on themselves, we wouldn't need any activists because most of the problems wouldn't even exist.
well, look at it like this, right? Activism is how this country started, right? So activism it's not activism that's the problem. It's not the activists. Had you not had activism, had you not had radical infection in this country, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You understand what I'm saying? In the very beginning, what made the colonists, and again, you got if you want to know the nature of a beast, you got to go back to its birth. What made them break away from the crown, right? They weren't being represented in parliament, right? Very simple
Well,
slogan.
I don't want to
No,
conflate activists and revolutionaries because
well,
that's
that's
two
the
different
same
things.
thing. What
No,
activates
no,
revolution? What
they're two
activates
different
revolution?
things.
No, but what
You
activates
you
revolution?
you can
How
be a
would you how,
revolution. Go ahead.
hold it? How would you know? How would you know you need to be a revolutionary if you didn't activate something first? You mean to tell me you think these people, the colonists, you think they started with just revolution? No,
They
man, they sat
started
their
they
con.
started they started internal. They didn't go out there and say,
That's
"Well,
their
I'm just going to
activism.
march and protest." They planned. They sat back and worked within themselves in their own group and they
Listen,
planned how
it
are we
wasn't
going to
wasn't that
enact
simple.
change.
Wasn't that simple? Go back and read Ruggles and them cats, man. The reality is people went in the club, the pubs, they sat on benches, they went to their jobs, they complained, they fussed, they talked, they got together. That's activism. That's active. Activism doesn't mean somebody with a sign or somebody with a walking, marching or throwing stones. That's not that. That's not that. This is what they tell you. Activism. Activism is what gives birth to revolution. That's what starts. That's the spark that starts the fire, and it started here. It's anywhere there was a revolution. It wasn't just here. This is even a bad analogy to give America. It started in other places. Started in the Congo. It started in Ghana. It started in the Ming Dynasty. It started during the European slave trade when they decided they had enough in Eastern Europe. You know what I'm saying? It started with the Romanovs. It started with the Bolsheviks. Activism is a part of how the human species activates revolution. It's how it comes into fruition through activation, activism, activation. That's how it starts. And all I'm saying is that, you can't kill the messenger, man. You can't do it, man. A lot of great folks have been activists. In fact, in order for you to have this view, somebody had to activate it. Something had to something had to start a spark somewhere down the line in your 40 some odd years. Something had to activate you, and it brought you to this particular point, man. And like, activism is not the problem. And see, again, it's you know we have to be very careful about making the victim the perpetrator and vice versa, the perpetrator, the victim. It's a lot of games being played in this society. It's a lot of bait and switching going on here. It's a
A
lot
lot
of
of bait and switching, a lot of bait and switching.
a
So
lot
we
of
we
bait.
getting ready to end this session, right? So I'm gonna give y'all some last comments, but before I give you the last comments, I just want to read something here that actually I have in the book called The Laws That Lie. We have The Laws That Lie, Volume 1. You can get this. You can get the Volume 1, or you can get Volume 2. You have Volume 1 and Volume 2, and we're going to tell you how you can get it in a minute. But before I do that, I just wanted to read something here that's in the book, right? In the book, it kind of elaborates on it a little more. But here, I just looked it up on Google, and it said the Federal Housing Administration, established in 1934, was designed to expand home ownership for working class Americans. But in the first few decades, its policies were explicitly designed for and overwhelmingly benefited white families. The FHA used redlining to deny loans to black applicants and insured mortgages in segregated white neighborhoods, creating a massive racial driven wealth gap. 50% of most wealthy people's portfolio is real estate. And I think that that's something that's very important, very important. We really need to consider us playing Monopoly for 400 years without any money and then getting on the board and they want us to catch up. Like they say, pull yourself up by the bootstrap, but you have no boots. So this is the way that I look at it. So get the book, The Laws That Lie. With that being said, we have 1 minute. I'm gonna give you 1 minute, brother, Magnetic. and then I'm gonna give you 1 minute final thoughts, Brother Sahji. Brother Magnetic,
Okay. Literally 1 minute, as in 60 seconds.
literally 60 seconds. Yes, because we're getting
Okay.
ready to go out. We
I
really over
gotta,
time right now.
and I realized that. I just had to make sure you were being literal,
Yeah,
and
we'll
now I'm
have
at 40.
more
Yeah.
of these
Now,
conversations
now I'm
for
at
sure.
48 seconds. Let me go, bro. So, uh, I guess I'll just say, I know that I have a lot of views that are unorthodox, unusual for a black man. I appreciate you guys, entertaining my dialogue, my thoughts, and my ideas and my opinions. Um, I did want to make a point, but now I started thinking about that 1 minute, right? So I'm like, damn, there was something that I wanted to say, but I don't remember what it was. So, I do want to say that you did make a good point, brother, about activism. Activism, I'm not saying that activism shouldn't exist at all. Um, I backtrack on that a little bit in the sense that I'm talking about priority should be on what we do for ourselves as an individual, bettering yourself first. In other words, you hear that old adage about when you're in a plane crash, don't put somebody else's mask on before you put your own mask on. You know what I'm saying? What so many of us do, we get outraged about these issues and these things that we see on the outside, and we immediately grab the mask and go, we need to save the whales, we need to save the immigrants, and then they're putting these masks on everybody else while internally they're damaged and broken and traumatized, and have all of these issues that end up you know ill affecting them.
Right.
So that's kind of what I wanted to say in regards to that. And lastly, if you can give me 20 seconds left, right? Give me 20 now.
10
20
seconds.
seconds.
Go ahead, brother. Man, God almighty.
We are now at a point that, just piggybacking off of what you were saying about pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps and we don't have any boots and playing Monopoly with no money. That is true, was true up to a point. Now we kind of have some boots on, like I was saying. We have serious spending power collectively as Black people. We have billionaires, we have millionaires, we have people who, if we were all on the same page and in accordance, meaning if Asians or Jews or anybody else was in our position, within one generation, they would be out of this position or in a much, much better position. So we need to think in terms of ourselves, our destiny, claiming what we do have and turning that into what we need it to be so that we can have the kind of future that we want to have. And like I said, most of it starts with intact families, ourselves as individuals, then our families, then our communities, and then our nation. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I think Hassan is calling me.
Yeah, he's somewhere in there somewhere. Oh, his phone went out.
Yeah, I didn't get the damn call in time. He stopped ringing. Are we just? I think it's just me and you in here, and Tariq is in here. He hasn't said anything.
Oh, Tariq is in there? Okay.
Yeah. Tariq's been here the whole time.
Oh, okay. You hear me? Tell him I said, what's up there, Abdul?
Tariq.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm gonna.
It's just the end of the time.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and log off. If you want to call me, you could do that. But I'm gonna call Hassan
Okay.
back.
Yeah, he's gonna call you.
And
He's
Brother
gonna call
Sahji,
you.
pleasure speaking with you. I appreciate your views and the things you have to say, and it was good dialogue. It was good conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate you taking the time and tolerating my sometimes uh grumpy old man self. So I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
But
We agree on a lot more than it seems, though. I
well, I
believe.
mean, listen, man. Listen. We all have a right to
Oh,
to our opinion and to respect the opinions of others that may not
Hmm.
reflect, our own.
Yeah.
That I'm learning as an older guy. I'm actually learning it because I
Hmm.
was horrible as a young guy, but
Yeah.
I'm actually, you know, in a place in my life now where I can actually uh, control myself. I should say that, But it's cool because I learn a lot more that way than I did by being confrontational or being uh, closing my ears or my eyes to whatever it is that I
Hmm.
didn't, feel was comfortable. So, I thank you for that, man. It's all about learning, man. It's all about,
Yeah. I
finding
agree.
new ways to express yourself, and also about thinking outside your own personal box sometimes,
Yeah.
you know. And I wanted to leave you cats with a poem before I left, man,
Yeah.
because
Hassan, just so you know, Hassan just texted me, told me his phone died. That's why he cut
yeah,
out like that.
yeah, he just called me and told me, but it's still recording, right?
I'm not sure.
It says this meeting is being recorded. So I believe it's still, you can't, are you near Tyree?
No,
What do you?
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right here. I see you.
Okay, so I can go ahead and just go ahead and do this thing, get my last minute off, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to do this poem for you guys, man. I did a lot of writing, uh, for years, and a lot of the stuff that I wrote, I actually memorized. I actually committed to memory because I was, uh, and I had to. But real quick, who am I? What am I? Why am I? Bound in a shroud of darkness, hidden in plain view, confounded by the light, moving aimlessly towards confrontation. See, my quest lies at the foot of truth's door. Seek and ye shall find in time, on time, between time, but never out of time, you see, because time is a relative thing, But to what? I've never claimed city blocks or Rolex clocks lace my pockets with stardust sniff and crescent moon rifts ancient as African sands. A direct descendant of the first man, child of God. I who have prostrated with the Mau Mau and left my burnt offerings for them to claim. A token of a sojourn truth long before the white man came. Seeking my level in a river of timelessness, the Sarcadian swirl of deceit seeks to consume me and mine in time, in timelessness. And so I seek the sooth. In time, the truth will come. In time. But for now, the truth is lost between red hot thighs and lying eyes, blistering lips and African hips, floating in a polluted stream of unconsciousness, stagnant with the pus of a corporate gin, bathed in the filth of the first sin, floating beneath a river of timelessness. With my mind faggotized by greed and lust, adopting the Euro pagan concept of in God we trust, placing all my hopes and dreams on the backs of blues without no greens. I mean, me, us, we have forgotten how to listen to the pulse of the mother, defiled our women and murdered our brothers in blood that runs cold as Europe's shores, iced in our veins by time and circumstance. We remain chained to an antagonistic relationship of fire and ice, frozen beneath a river of timelessness. And so I seek the sooth, speaking the unspoken words of truth to the children of windblown spirits. And as a trillion stars bear witness to this testimony, every whisper, every word is documented and detailed. Is it calamity or is it proof? And so I seek the sooth inside of sovereign seas of sedition, placed deep within the fertile earth of the bruised and the beaten, running red with the blood of the oppressed and scattered. You see, in truth, time really doesn't matter because all time unfolds in the bosom of truth, and death is reborn in our children's eyes. But I'll keep calling out the moon and stars and any celestial bodies that haven't been defiled by pale hands. And I'll keep calling out the moon and stars for proof. For this is why I seek the sooth.
Beautiful. Excellent. I loved it. We
Thank
got to
you,
get him on the
brother.
record, Tariq.
Thank
Yeah.
you, brother.
You heard, Tariq? We got to get him on the record.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an artist, and Tariq is an artist.
Okay.
You know, we
Well, we
both
all
produce,
artists.
and yeah. I'm saying we need to get you on the record. I would love to, produce something and have you speak on it. You know what I mean? That would be great. I think you're very talented, brother.
Well, that word sooth, man, before you guys go, sooth is the word that precedes the word truth. Truth is an old Gaelic word, probably comes out of the 9th century. Sooth goes back beyond that. Sooth goes back about 1,500 years before the word truth came into existence. In fact, they called the prophets soothsayers. So
Soothsayers, yeah.
so when you look up truth, right, you get about 4 or 5 different sub definitions. When you look up sooth in the old world dictionary, it has one definition. You know what that definition is? The real. What better description of the truth than the real? So that's what that's about.
I just learned something.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All
No
right, I'm
problem.
gonna go ahead and cut out. Have a good night. I
Take
appreciate the
care.
time.
Pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Appreciate it. And we got to do it again sometime. Maybe we can do it on
Yeah.
something other than politics. I don't know.
Yeah, right. I'm with you on that.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Peace,
Yeah, have a
bro.
good night. Peace.
Yes, sir.
Oh, our son came back at the last minute too. We were
Yeah,
just
yeah. My,
Oh,
my battery died out, man. That's what I was trying to say, man.
yo, you sure that wasn't you over there getting those mango biscuits? Did I see
Nah,
you?
man. All right, you guys, take
All
care.
right.
Have a
Yeah,
good
we
night,
cutting out.
man.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Everything that was said on this show right here is the opinions of the individuals and not the opinions of the laws that lie or this station. Thank you very much.
All right.
Right, brother. Peace.
Peace.
Assalamu alaikum.